Good morning, everybody. My name is Darlene, and I have Parkinson's. I thought today that we'd maybe talk a little bit about the early signs of Parkinson's because there is no blood test that can diagnose. It's a lot of symptoms sort of lead them to a diagnosis, and then they try you on the medicine. And if you have a great response to the medicine, that's affirming that they have made the correct diagnosis. But there's a lot of symptoms that can be attained to other things. And so therefore it kind of sometimes gets missed for a while. And then by the time they know about what you have, you're kind of getting further along the path of the disease. I hate calling it a disease. We won't say that. We'll call it, what would we call it? A condition. We'll call it a condition. It is Parkinson's disease, but I feel better if we call it a condition. So I've been told, I should say I'm not a doctor, I'm simply a Parkinson patient. I'm just telling my experience about it all. So as many as 40 different symptoms can occur, and they aren't necessarily everybody having everything. The one that everybody attributes to Parkinson's is a tremor. For me, that was not my major condition, but that is one of the things that is the most noticeable, and sort of people think of that. But there is a few that are really kind of obscure and hidden, and nobody thinks about this. A loss of smell. Now, that did not happen to me, thankfully, because I really enjoy, like when I'm cooking bacon or onions or things like that. I love that. A bouquet of flowers coming in, and think about the dangers if you don't smell gas or, things like that. It could be very dangerous. So a loss of smell is something that can be attributed to it. And like I said, I was fortunate. The first two things there I didn't have. Well, I have since developed a tremor, but not a bad tremor. This movement that you see here, this is not a tremor. This is a result of not over medication, but it's of heavy medication. So therefore, if you take your brain isn't providing the dopamine that it needs, so you're taking a synthetic dopamine called levodopa or Cinemet. And when you take a lot of the synthetic dopamine, it causes dyskinesia, which is this movement that you see. That's the large body movements. That's why when the medication wears off, I suddenly go very still because there's not that large quantity of medicine in my body. The next one is I never knew what it was. I never knew it was Parkinson's. And it was one of the things that helped them diagnose me. For years, probably 3 years, I was in a weight loss group that people would say to me, "Oh, Darlene, write bigger. We can't read when you write things. We can't read it. It's so tiny." And I said, I can't write any bigger. Like, I try to write bigger and it starts big and it goes small. And it's like, as soon as I don't think what I'm doing, the writing gets to the point where it's almost a squiggly line. I have many times written something down and the next day said to my daughter, "What did I write here? Like, what was it trying to say?" Because I can't even read my own writing.
Here's your reminder. Claudine loves you both.
Okay, that was my Alice machine in the background. We have it programmed to remind me about all of my medications that I have to take. It comes on. So when my daughter set up all the reminders, she picked the obscure time of 4:20 in the afternoon for the machine to tell us that she loves us both. And every day I get a voice telling me my daughter loves me. She is a sweetheart. Anyway, small handwriting. That is one of the early signs of Parkinson's that you can have. Trouble sleeping. For years I had restless legs. And that, if you have restless legs early in your life, eventually you can develop Parkinson's. It's one of those connections that they have. The other one is people who have A REM disorder when they're sleeping, being that they act out their dreams. Like if they're very active in their bed when they're sleeping and they're acting out their dreams, that also is a sign of Parkinson's, or Parkinson's that may develop down the road. Trouble moving or walking. This was my huge issue. Stiffness. Everything got stiff and I was having trouble moving and whatnot, and I thought, oh, maybe it was fibromyalgia and maybe it was this and that, all the rest of it. And then I realized that I was having trouble going sideways or backwards and turning around. Like if I was at the sink, I just got to put my fan on. I do this every time. I get hot all the time. I forget to put my fan on. If I'm at the sink and I need to turn around to the stove, I can't make that as a fluid movement. I have to do one of these little shuffly turns. It's craziness, but that's how I have to do it. And that's also one of the ways that they were able to diagnose for me. Here's a common thing that people have is constipation, but that's often misread and not looked at as Parkinson's. It's often misread, but that can be a sign of that. Another, again, this is so obscure, a soft or a low voice when you're talking. If your voice goes quite soft, again, not my problem, but that is, a lot of people have that issue. A masked face. People sometimes get a stare and they don't quite have an animated face. And they'll be telling something to somebody and people think that they're not paying attention or that they're not really interested because they don't look like they're paying attention. But they really are, but they've got a masked look on their face. That's quite common. Dizziness or fainting. Your blood pressure drops. You get low blood pressure. And that could be because of Parkinson's. Doesn't have to be, but it is a possibility that would be there. And stooping over or hunching down. People tend to curl over a little bit. And these are all signs. Now, when I was going to be diagnosed, the first fellow, he just had me walk into the office, and they quite often have you just walk into the office, and they can just tell from the way you're walking, and then they'll ask you a few pointed questions, and they can tell. Then they've got the tests that they do, and it's all making these fingers go together, and then you got to do these ones and these ones, and tapping your feet, and they have all different tests that they do, and then they will confirm. They do a brain scan like a MRI, and then they'll put you on the medicine. And if you have a marked improvement with your first few doses of medicine, then they are assured that that's what you have. It's awful that you can't just get an easy diagnosis, and sometimes it takes years. But if it takes years, it takes years, and as long as you get the diagnosis and get the medicine, that's what is important. The other thing that's important to me is family. Family's the reason I'm doing these videos. I'm doing this so my family has a record. I want my family to remember me. I want them to remember that I was a funny person, that I loved life, even when life didn't love me. And so I'm going to tell a story, of course, about my granddaughter. Her name is Ivy. She's now 23 years old. And she used to come to my house to be babysat when her mother was working and I hadn't moved away yet. So she was about in grade 3. And we lived maybe 6 to 8 blocks away. And we had to sneak through a fence and over a train track and down an alleyway and then get on the main road and head to school. We walked it every day. And we could hear the bell, the first bell that would go to tell the kids to come off the playground. And then we knew we had 5 minutes and the second bell went. And if you weren't in school by the second bell, then you were marked late. So we always tried to be school for the first bell. And then I would walk home and go back later and get her. Well, this one particular day, We were just walking and sauntering and not paying a lick of attention to what time it was. And in the distance, we had about 5 blocks still to go, and in the distance, we heard the first bell go. And I said to Ivy, we have a ways to go, and we're not going to get there unless we hoof it. So let's go. I said, come on, let's have a race for that bell. And I started to run, and I turned around to make sure she's running with me. And she's running, and we get to the school, and I'm all out of breath. And she looks at me, and she goes, Grandma, I didn't know you could run. I said, I don't know that I can, but we did. We made it before the second bell. And I've laughed about it many times. Grandma, I didn't know you could run. But anyway, that's my story. I also want to I want to say hello to my grandson, Finn. Now, he's only 6 months old. He's the light of my life, a little sweet pea. And I haven't had much chance to visit with him a lot because of the pandemic. But he watches, or he doesn't watch, he listens to my videos. So the other day, my son and his wife brought little Finn over, and he heard my voice. I was going over to the pram and looked in, and he heard my voice, and he smiled, the biggest smile you've ever seen in your life. I was so happy. And his mom says to him, yes, Finn, that's Grandma, that's voice from the light box. So Grandma's the voice from the light box. But anyway, I loved his smile, and I said, I'm going to say hello to him. So hello, Finn. Anyway, everybody, have a great day.